Hi and welcome to a new video, and in this one we're going to take a look at Gran Turismo 7 and where it is now, a little over 2 years after its launch. So GT7 launched back in March of 2022, early in the month, but I'm recording this later in the month, and what I wanted to talk about with you is really what changes it's undergone, and I'm going to break them down into three very broad categories here. We're going to look at what I think's improved for the better, so things that are a good change to the title. What is kind of like meh, you know, what isn't really that great, hasn't, but you know, what wasn't a major issue, but it hasn't really been improved. And the stuff that I still think is bad about the title and needs to be changed. So, we'll please everybody first of all by going through the good stuff. So, what has changed for the better in Gran Turismo 7? Now, if you want a benchmark for this, by the way, if you look up in the top, I will link to my original review of Gran Turismo 7, which was done, I think, a week or two after its launch. I did also do a quick look when it first came out, but the review is probably a better benchmark for where we were at launch for Gran Turismo 7. Okay, so let's start off, as I say, with the good stuff, and the first one is the physics. Now, I'm not going to for seconds say that Gran Turismo 7 is, you know, the benchmark by which all sim racing titles should have their physics measured against, because, to be blunt, it's not. It is a good introduction to sim racing. That is where Gran Turismo 7 stands for me. There are titles out there with significantly more nuanced, more detailed, more accurate physics. But Gran Turismo 7 now, on the whole, does stuff right. It pretty much reacts as you would expect it to react in the vast majority of circumstances. You know, it just doesn't have that final level of detail and granularity that other titles do have. And in all fairness, a lot of those titles were originally PC titles and in some cases remain PC titles. But Gran Turismo does what it does, or GT7 does what it does, well enough to be a really solid introduction. Now, that's not how it was at launch. At launch, the physics were, as I described, under the limit of grip and up to the point of losing grip. But once you stepped over it, the back end of the car would just swap out massively and you'd just end up spinning around in a circle. It was absurd. The degree of traction drop-off was just absolutely ridiculous and bore no resemblance to reality. At the time of launch, some people tried arguing that it did. It doesn't. No other sim title does it like this. Titles which have better physics than Gran Turismo 7 don't do it like this. The tyre model had some significant issues with it at launch, and I called that out at launch. That has been fixed, which is a major improvement, because being perfectly honest, the title was pretty much unusable to a large degree with the physics as they were. So that's definitely good. The other good thing is we've had a really good boost in the content. So cars are around about the 500 level mark now, and we've had regular releases of cars pretty much most months. We've had at least 2 or 3 cars come out, and we've had a reasonable number of tracks added into the title as well. And the car and track list weren't bad to start off with. Now, I am, however, going to come back and put in a couple of caveats of that when we get to the meh and the bad sections of this video. But overall, it's a good improvement, particularly with regard to cars. And they've kept the standard of modelling, particularly with the cars. Now, standard modelling, GT tracks are accurate. There's absolutely no getting away from that, particularly the real world ones. Obviously, the fantasy ones are no more or less accurate than any other fantasy track is. And they are, on the whole, pretty good, the fantasy tracks, but I will come back to that in a little bit. The releases for tracks hasn't been as good as cars, but it's still been good. We've had new tracks added, you know, Spa, Watkins Glen gets a big thumbs up from me. I absolutely love Watkins Glen. We've had new layouts for Catalonia. We've had new layouts out for the Nürburgring and the Nordschleife. We've had a new ice racing track in terms of Lake Louise, you know, and we've had Grand Valley added back in. So it's been good. Could have been better in terms of tracks, but the other good thing is Polyphony Digital are still adding content into the title. So, you know, at the point of recording this, it's a Tuesday. We've got a new content drop on Thursday of this week, I think, which is adding 3 new cars in there, which is great. That is a big positive. We've also had GT7 this time around fully support PSVR 2, and it is the only serious racing title of any type on the PlayStation that has supported PSVR 2. There's one kart racing track, arcade kart racing track, I believe, but GT7 is the only one that has properly embraced PSVR 2. And if you know my videos and the channel of old, you will know I'm a big exponent of VR. So bringing VR to Gran Turismo 7 and doing it properly. Remember, in GT Sport and the original PSVR, it was tacked on. You couldn't really do a great deal with it. This now is fully featured. You can do everything with it. The entire game is open. And that's great because it opens VR racing up to an entire new group of people. Now, I have my own reasons. I would never, as things stand right now, buy a PSVR 2 because I'm not dropping circa £500 on a VR headset that I can use for one title. It makes no sense for me, being a predominantly PC gamer. Now, if the rumours are true and Sony does add functionality to allow the PSVR 2 to be used on PC and does so well, I may well consider picking one up because I think it's a great headset. It's just not worth it for one title that isn't my principal focus in terms of sim racing. But that's not to downplay PSVR 2 and the support the Polyphony of Digital have given GT7 with it. That's a big plus. My final good point and major improvement is around what they've been doing with Sophie and the improvements it's bringing slowly to AI, but more importantly the realization by PD that their AI model is not great. Now, Sophie as it stands at the moment, it isn't available everywhere. It's only available on the PS5 and it's only available in certain events and they are very limited, but I'm putting it in the good category because, being perfectly honest, it is driving things forward and it's an acknowledgement by PD that this is an area that they do need to work on. So there we go. Those are my good ones. If you are a rabid Gran Turismo fan and you get really enraged by people talking negatively about the title, stop watching the video now, because I'm about to talk about the things that I don't like as much. Right, moving on to the meh category. I actually only have one thing in here, being perfectly honest, and that is the fact that, for me, the car list, expansive and good as it is really imbalanced. And what I mean by that is, if you are looking to drive a modern-ish car, and for that I'm putting an arbitrary point in time of 2020. So if you're looking for a car that's been made in the last 4 or so years, you're going to really struggle with Gran Turismo 7. Less than 5% of the car list comes from 2020 or later. Now, I am excluding from that Vision GT cars, which again, some people may also put in a meh category because they don't appeal to everybody. Some of them I like, some of them I think are a bit absurd, but that aside, I'm not really talking about those. For me, the main one is the 2020, the lack of modern stuff from 2020 onwards. 5% is incredibly low in that regard. It really is. For a lot of people, that won't be an issue. It's not a major issue for me, which is why it goes into this kind of, yeah, it's disappointing, but I'm not really that disappointed by it category. And that's the only one that goes into that. Okay. On to the bad stuff. The stuff that still really grates me. The first and most important one is the single player. The single player in Gran Turismo 7 was rightly condemned at launch of being really bare bones and odd. It has improved slightly, but not significantly, and some of the ways they've tried to improve it haven't really worked that well either, or had obvious issues that could have been avoided. So it still relies on the, by now very tired, predominance of Chase the Rabbit events that are done via these kind of coffee shop menu things that don't really add a great deal for me into the game, and limiting your single player pretty much to that. It's just, there's nothing there. And it hasn't improved significantly. You know, if that's what had been there 2 years ago and that's it, and they'd have completely overhauled it in the following 2 years, that'd have been brilliant. But they haven't. They've kind of just doubled down and added on to it. And yes, they have added in some mission-style events. But the problem with these is a lot of them are one and done. You can only earn the reward once, and that removes replayability for them. So, you know, they added in endurance events because people went, where the hell are the endurance events? They added those in, but went, well, you can only win the prize money for those once. Why? That makes no sense, unless you're very cynical, and I'll come on to that in a moment, because I am quite cynical. It makes no sense, you know, and these still have the Chase the Rabbit AI that is very, very, very annoying. You know, you're building a car to chase after the car that ends up leading because it started up to half the track ahead of you, which means you annihilate half the field. You then have rolling roadblocks for another half of the field, and you're then trying to beat the final car over the finish line. It's not racing, it's just Polyphony Digital's weird interpretation of racing, and it's not good enough. It really, really isn't. You know, the entire PS3 generation, people went, oh, it's the power of the PS3, Polyphony can't get everything out of it, cut them some slack. No, other titles did it, and you had a similar sort of argument with the PS4, and it's just become something that people weirdly accept now, and I really don't know why, because it's not good enough. It simply isn't. The odd thing is, as well, there's a tiny fraction of standing start events in GT7, and they work pretty well. So why go to this daftness of having the majority of them as this stupid Chase the Rabbit when they can actually do it properly? As I say, this is a conscious decision that makes no sense. But there we go. Other things that really frustrate me is I'm not a big fan of what they've done to redevelop some of the fantasy tracks. So, Deep Forest and Grand Valley, they have redesigned these, and I'm not a big fan of how they've been redesigned. They've been redesigned for, let's be perfectly honest, they're Group 3 cars and above. The faster stuff. And it's really, really, really not to my taste. I far preferred the older incarnations of them. So to me, that's definitely something bad. Your mileage may well vary on that one, but for me, not good at all. And sticking with tracks and locations, it's still really limited on where you can run wet and dry and day and night cycles and time cycles. Now, it was limited at launch, and that was kind of like, yeah, okay, they've got time to add it in. They haven't, and as a result, it's chronically underused. Now, I know that particularly for the wet-dry cycles, and rain is done really well in Gran Turismo 7, which it makes it a shame that it's chronically underused. Again, it's not the best interpretation of rain out there. There are other titles that do it better, particularly with regard to things like drying line and stuff like that, but it's done well. It's just chronically underused. And I know the argument that PD put forward that, oh well, there's some of these locations where it's almost never going to rain, so we're not putting rain on there. I don't care about that. I want a sandpit. And this may just be me talking, but I want a sandpit. I don't care if it really, really, really is unlikely to rain at Willow Springs. What if I want to find out what it's like to drive at Willow Springs if it does rain? Give me the choice. Give me the option. I really want to see PD expand on all of these to basically open it up so that we can race at any time of the day or night, with any time increment, on any surface, at dry, wet, in between, the lot. Give us all of them. Other titles do it, so please, come on. Come on, Polyphony Digital. So for me, that's not just a bad and a lack of improvement. It's wasting something that GT7 does really well. And that's frustrating from my point of view. Another thing that they've not improved and annoys me is the force feedback. Now, they've kind of like chopped and changed and tweaked the force feedback, but we still have this really, really annoying, ooh, I'm on the edge of understeer, the wheel's going to rattle at you. It doesn't happen in reality. That is not how it happens. You get a fall off of grip, and then you might get some tyre hop after that, but you do not get a vibration through the steering wheel at the point that you start going into understeer. It does not happen. That is not how the physics of tyre dynamics work. I've had this argument with more people than I care to remember, and it doesn't matter. That's not how it works. I used to train this stuff. It doesn't happen that way. And my final negative, and this for me, some people may overlook this, but it annoys me. It really does, because there are other titles that have lots of cars from this manufacturer, and that is the fact that the car list still, to this day, has no Lotuses in it. And we haven't had a Lotus in Gran Turismo since the demo build, or may even have been the beta build, of GT Sport. Now, we know the reasons why. There was a financial falling out between Lotus and Polyphony Digital around Gran Turismo Sport. But we are many years past that. And Lotus is an incredibly emblematic manufacturer out there, you know, both in terms of motorsport and in terms of their road cars. And them missing from GT7 is more of an issue in my mind for Gran Turismo than it is for Lotus. And I would dearly love to see Lotus back in Gran Turismo, and I suspect I'm not the only person here. You know, not just for the road cars, but also, as I say, for the motorsport models. They've got such a storied history in both counts that it really, the loss is felt, certainly by me. So that for me is a big one. So there we go. That is Gran Turismo 7, 2 years on, what I think they've improved on, what they haven't really improved on, and what they really still are falling down on from my perspective. Let me know down in the comments below if you've got different thoughts on this. I'm fairly certain people will have. And if you've enjoyed this video, please do hit the like button. And if you want to see more content like this, please do subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified when new content gets uploaded. Thanks very much for watching, everyone. Take care. Bye.